3, 2, 1.
Hi, in this video of Practical Tips for Rocket Engineering, we're going to take a quick close look at pressure gauges. So you might want to use a pressure gauge like this, okay, in your pressure system, just to know what the pressure is at any one point in your system. You should never really have any part of the system where you don't know the pressure at. So you could use gauges like this, or you could use digital pressure transducers as well. But as long as you've got some information about every part of the pipework and you don't have sections of your feed system that are enclosed and you have no information about whatsoever, then you're good. Okay, if you do have closed sections, you know, parts of your feed system which you can turn some valves off and you don't know the pressure within it, you might want to rethink your design to put in either pressure gauges like this, or as I said before, digital pressure transducers as well. So a few little points to note. Okay, most pressure gauges will have an inner and outer dial, okay, and with two sets of numbers. A lot of these designs you will set by the manufacturer or when you buy it in the first place, but very commonly you will have PSI and bar here. So on this particular gauge, we've got PSI in red on the inside and we've got bar on the outside. Now, one important thing to note, okay, when dealing with gauges is that they are measuring the pressure above atmosphere, okay? So when you see 1 bar on a gauge like this, you are measuring 1 bar above the atmosphere. So we call this 1 bar gauge, 1 bar with a capital G for gauge. In reality, if you were to compare this with a vacuum environment, okay, where the pressure is almost 0, it would be 2 bar absolute. So we call that bar absolute or bar capital A. So there is always a difference between bar gauge and bar absolute. And when you're dealing with rocketry, you need to be very clear if you are reading off pressure, if it's a pressure in bar gauge or if you're doing a pressure in bar absolute, okay, because that will have impact on your calculations. In general, okay, when you are using pressure gauges, choose a pressure gauge which is about 2/3 of your overall pressure system. What I mean by that is that if I was to have a 100 bar pressure gauge, then at a maximum I would be going up to about 60-70 bar in my actual system. That way, if there are fluctuations in the pressure, it's not going to destroy your gauge. So the way that a pressure gauge operates is that there is a small diaphragm in the end here. And in a manual gauge like this, as the diaphragm deforms, okay, it will move the mechanism to effectively turn the dial around. These are very good because they don't need any sort of electricity to operate them, and so they can be used in all sorts of environments, and they're effectively a cost-effective solution. An alternative to the manual pressure gauge is a pressure transducer, where you will have an inlet, okay, for the pressure to be fed into. So this is the working side, and then you'll have some form of electrical connection on the other side as well. And most pressure transducers will also require some form of sealing as well to go into the threaded system. Now, with a digital pressure transducer, okay, there is also a diaphragm in here, but on the other side of the digital, there is a strain gauge inside the pressure transducer that, when deformed, will give an output to the signal which the pressure transducer reads and gives you your pressure. Now, in both the digital pressure transducer and also the manual gauge, it is very important that you don't over pressurize these systems, because the diaphragms will break and then you could effectively blow off the front of the gauge in here, or blow up the internals of the housing in the digital pressure transducers. Now, saying that, with the digital pressure transducers, although you'll destroy the insides, they do have an ultimate pressure rating as well, so you might be lucky. But don't run these at the maximum. Always go for about 60–70% of their maximum value able to, as a good rule of thumb. Okay, if you've enjoyed that video on pressure gauges and pressure transducers, then please like and subscribe.